Hello dear students, in the previous class you studied the introduction of government companies. In that definition, as per the section 2 subsection 45 of the Indian Companies Act 2013 ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಅದು ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು. ಈಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವೀಗ ನೋಡಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ already definition is over in this concept. Now we are going to study the features of government companies and head. Government companies have certain characteristics or certain features which are totally distinct from other form of business organizations, because we already, I think you also studied what are the different forms of organizations will comes and how the government company and other forms of business organizations different in the characteristics. So let us we will move on to the first one. First one bardare, it is an organization, or you can also call it as government companies are established as per the Indian Companies Act 2013 or any company law or any previous company law. According to that act also these companies can be created or established. This is the first one. Ba simple heltara avage it is an organization established under the Companies Act 2013 or any other company or any other previous company law as per the previous company law also. These companies are established or created. Second one other, sir matta government company ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂತ ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲನ್ರಿ, ಮತ್ತದು ಬೇರೆದರ ಜೊತೆ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದಾ ಹೆಂಗ, ಅಥವಾ ಅದು ತನ್ನ ಒಂದು ನೇಮ್ನಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿಯನ್ನ ಹೆಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದಾ ಹೆಂಗ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ, ಎಸ್ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ can also have the rights to make a contract with the third party or make a contract with the others, and also these companies can have the property in its own name. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the company can enter into contract and can also have the property in its own name. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ತನ್ನ ಹೆಸರಿನಿಂದ ಅದು ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು, ತನ್ನ ಹೆಸರಿನಿಂದ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಖರೀದಿಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್, ದ ಕಂಪನಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈಲ್ ಎ ಕೇಸ್ ಅಗೇನೆಸ್ಟ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ. This is the third features. A government company can file a case against third party, and also third party can also file a case against these government companies. It means in the case of if anything or unfavorable events happens to the public or whatever or at the time of a contract there may be misunderstanding between the companies and the contractor. On that moment, government company can also file a case against third party, and also third party can file a case against companies also. Next, fourth anta ನಾವು ಹೋದ್ರೆ, the management of these companies are regulated or governed by the act of the government. ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ government held not less than 51% of the paid up capital of the company. Such companies are called a government company. So the rules and regulations or the management of these public companies are governed by the provisions of the act. It means as per the act these companies are going to manage their activities of that company. It means like any other limited company, the same rules and regulations will be applicable to these companies also. Next to fifth one, now features ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ employees of the company appointed, okay, the employees of the companies are appointed according to their own rules and regulations. It means these companies have their own rules and regulations for a appointment, okay, for a appointment of employees. They have their own rules and regulations, and it is mentioned in the memorandum and articles of association of the company. It means what ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ರಿ, ಈಗ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯೀಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದಂಥ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ at the time of appointing the employees for these companies, they have their own rules and regulations and terms and conditions, okay, at the time of appointing the employees for the companies. But these terms and conditions and these rules and regulations are mentioned in the memorandum and articles of association of the companies. Andre ಆ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತು ಮೆಮೊರಂಡಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ 2 ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಸ್ ಪರ್ ದಿ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಮೆಮೊರಂಡಮ್ and articles of association of the company, employees are appointed. And one more thing, these memorandum and articles of association are the 2 important documents of the companies. Andra ee eradu document ಗಳು ಇದಾವಲ್ಲ, ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದಂತ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಗಳಾಗಿರ್ತಾವೆ. Then what it contains, ಏನನ್ನ ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, these documents contains, okay, the objects, okay, the objectives of that company, rules and regulations, terms and conditions of that company, ಅವುಗಳನ್ನು ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ 6th one ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, these companies are exempted. ನೋಡ್ರಿ, what are privileges enjoyed by these public companies. These companies are exempted from the accounting and auditing rules and procedures. ನೋಡಿ, ನಾವು ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಗಳಿಗೆ they must follow the rules and procedures of accounting and auditing. But in case of public companies or in case of government companies, these companies are exempted from the accounting and auditing rules and procedures. But the central government appoint an auditor. ನೋಡಿ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಜಾ ಅಂತ, ಕಂಪನಿಗಳ ಒಂದು ಅಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಮತ್ತು ಆಡಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೊಸೀಜರ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಅವರು ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಆಡಿಟರ್ ಟು ಆಡಿಟ್ ದಿ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ. ನೋಡಿ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಅನುಕೂಲತೆಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತಾರೋ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. And an annual report, whatever the report prepared by that company, that will be submitted in the parliament. ಅವ್ರು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಸಬ್ಮಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರು, ಆರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಲೆಜಿಸ್ಲೇಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ದ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ, ಎಸ್, ದ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ obtain its funds. The government companies obtain its funds from the government. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಆವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ, more than 50% or not less than 51% paid up capital of the companies are held by the government. ಹಂಗಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ 51% ಗಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ, ಸಪೋಸ್ ಈಗ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನಾದರೂ 60% ಸೇಮ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಅನ್ನ ಅಕ್ವೈರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಈಗ ಸಪೋಸ್ ನೋಡ್ರಿ, ಈಗ 1 lakh rupee, ಐ ಟೇಕ್ ಒನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಈಗ 1 ಲಕ್ಷ ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಂಪನಿದು ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಿ, ಈಗ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 60,000 ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ. ಸರ್ ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್? ಎಷ್ಟು ರೀಚ್ 40,000. Yes, the remaining capital of that company can raise that funds from the public, or that company can borrow that remaining funds from the private sector. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ರಿಮೈನಿಂಗ್ 40,000, this 16,000 will be all sanctioned by the government and this 40,000 from the public. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಈ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ತಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ದಿಂದ ಆಬ್ಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಇನ್ನು ಉಳಿದಂತ ಫಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅವರು ಈ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಗೆ ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಸ್, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರೇಸ್ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಆಫ್ ಸೇಸ್ ಟು ದಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್. ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಅದರದ್ದು ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಇನ್ನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಮುಗಿದು ಇನ್ನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮೆರಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ಸರ್ ಏನು ಒಂದು ಅನುಕೂಲತೆಗಳನ್ನ ಇವರು ಅನುಭವಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ, ಎಸ್, ದ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಸ್ ಸಮ್ ಪ್ರಿವಿಲೇಜಸ್. ಅದು ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಡ್. These companies can be established by fulfilling the requirements as per the Companies Act 2013 or any other previous company law. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬೇಕು ನಾವು ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕಂಪನಿಯನ್ನ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಬಹಳ ಈಸಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರ ಅವರು. ಒಂದೇದು ಅನುಕೂಲತೆ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೆರಿಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. Yes, these organizations can be established by fulfilling the requirements as per the Companies Act 2013 or any previous company law. ಅಷ್ಟು ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಾಕು, ಆ ಕಂಪನಿಯನ್ನು ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇನ್ನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಿವಿಲೇಜಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ದೀಸ್ ಗವರ್ನಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ are having a distinct legal entity. It means once these companies are established, then these companies have a separate legal identity apart from the government. ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ದಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದೂರನೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ these companies have their own rules and regulations, but the capital investment will be made by the government. ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಹೆಂಗದಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಹೌದು, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ತಾವ, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರ ಅವಾಗ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದೂರನೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರ, ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್. It enjoys autonomy in the management decision making process. It means these companies can have an autonomy in the decision making process. It means whatever the decisions relating to that companies, that will be taken by the heads of that companies. Board of directors bartare, government appointment ಮಾಡಿರ್ತದೆ. The government itself appoint the board of directors for that companies. Then that board of directors are going to take decisions relating to that companies. It means as per the prudence of a business. It means as per the situation, what kind of a situation is there in that company, according to that situations, these board of directors are going to take decisions. It means they have a freedom in a decision making process. Idu third one. In the next two, these companies, by providing goods and services to the society, these companies can avoid the huge competition or can have a control over on the prices. These government companies are also going to provide goods and services to the society with a reasonable price. Then it will be helpful for the society to get goods and services with a reasonable prices. Andre to have a control over on the prices, this is the first one. And if there is an unfavorable practices okay, unfavorable practices which are involved or which are adopted by the private sector, then it curbs and curb unhealthy business operations. ಈಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳು unhealthy business operations ಅನ್ನು ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. It means charging high prices for the product. On that moment, these government companies, okay, curb that unhealthy business operations, and also these government companies are going to provide goods and services at a reasonable prices. These are the 4 merits of government companies. Then we will move on to the limitations of government companies. First ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ these companies have an autonomy in a decision making process ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. But ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರು, despite the autonomy given to the companies, they have some of the limitations also. ಏನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, since the government is the only one financer for these companies, or the government is the only one shareholders for so many companies, there is no chance of private investment in that companies. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕಂಪನಿಗಳದಾವ್ರಿ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಪನೀಸ್ಗಳಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. those companies, okay, finance is sanctioned by government itself. There is no private investment or there is no chance of private sector have an investment or interference in the investment. Then obviously then the Companies Act does not, okay, much relevance to these. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ Companies Act ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ not less than 51% of the paid up capital will be held by the government. But in some of the companies there is no chance of a private sector to invest in these companies. This is one drawback. Then second one, it evades institutional responsibility. It evades ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮರೆತು ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರು. ಓಕೆ, constitutional responsibility, because if anything happening which is against or which is not favorable or which is not there in the framework, on that moment also nobody can directly intimate to the parliament. ನಾವು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಈಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ರೀ ಹೆಂಗಿರುತ್ತಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗಳಿರ್ತಾವೆ, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಂಪ್ನಿಗಳಿರ್ತಾವೆ. ದೇರ್ ಮೇ ಬಿ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ whatever the unhealthy operations are going on in the company, we can't tell them directly to the parliament, okay, this is going on in the companies, because once the company gets established or gets registered as per the Companies Act, then total control, okay, will belongs to the government. ಅವರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the government appointed members are going to take responsibility of that company. They can make their own, okay, policies, okay, procedures. On that moment it is also difficult for the companies to run that business operations. In a third one ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, the government being the sole shareholders, because there is no chance of the secondary market to raise the funds. ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ಎರಡು ತರ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡರಿ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಇನ್ ದಿ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ದಿ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ರೇಸ್ಡ್ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿ equity shareholders, equity in the form of equity that will be raised from the government. But ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the government being the sole shareholder, the management and administration rests in the hands of government itself. It means that at the time of a decision making process we have to follow what kind of rules and regulations laid down by the government. Beyond that limitations, beyond that rules and regulations, we can't take any decisions. There may be chances of a delay in the decision making. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸಾರಿ ನೋಡಿ ನೀವು ಹೆಂಗತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, if any opportunities available to these companies to make them as a better. There will be a greater scope for there is a greater scope for better operations of the organization's activity, but on that moment funds is not released by the government time to time. This is the problem. Because of funds are not available time to time, then the operations of that organization will be held stopped. These are the consequences, or these are the problems faced by these government companies. We will move on to the next concept, that is the changing role of a public sector in the next class. Okay, thank you.